My sister snuck in and stole my gaming chair while laughing seconds later. Her scream echoed through the house. My husband walked into his surprise 40th birthday party locked in a passionate kiss with his work wife, and announced their affair right there in front of everyone. My revenge left him with absolutely nothing. My husband had always been vocal about how important turning 40 was to him. His father died tragically at 39, so reaching 40 felt like a personal victory, a milestone he desperately wanted to celebrate properly. When the date started getting close, I decided the best way to honor that was with a huge surprise party, surrounded by everyone who loved him, family, closest friends, the works. I poured my heart into every detail. The venue, our home, decorations, food, playlist, everything had to be flawless. I even flew in his mother, Cheryl, from out of state because I knew seeing her would make the night unforgettable for him. She and I have always been close, and I couldn't wait to see his face when he realized how many people showed up just for him. The evening arrived. The house was pitch black, guests hiding in silence, barely containing their excitement. I told him earlier that morning that I'd be at my parents' place all night so he wouldn't suspect a thing. When I heard his car pull up, my pulse was racing. Keys jingled, the lock clicked, and the door swung open. Surprise! Happy birthday! We flipped on the lights and jumped out, only to freeze in horror. There stood my husband, Jackson, tie half undone, arms wrapped tightly around his much younger coworker, April, mid-kiss. The entire room went dead silent. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My brain couldn't compute what my eyes were seeing. For context, April worked under Jackson at the office. I'd met her plenty of times at company Christmas parties. She always flirted shamelessly with the older guys, called herself Jackson's work wife as a running joke, and I'd laughed it off. I trusted my husband completely and never saw her as a real threat. Until that moment. Jackson finally noticed the room full of people staring and pulled away. He was clearly drunk, swaying slightly, and when the shock registered, he just chuckled and said, "Whoops." April stood there fixing her blouse, lipstick smeared, looking anywhere but at me. Cheryl was the first to speak. She shot up from her chair and thundered, "Jackson, what on earth do you think you're doing?" He spotted his mother, went pale, and mumbled something about not expecting a crowd. I stepped forward, voice shaking, and asked why he was bringing his mistress into our home on the night I'd planned this huge celebration for him. Jackson sighed like he was annoyed at a minor inconvenience, scanned the room, and shrugged. "Well, since the cat's out of the bag, April and I are together. We've been seeing each other for months. I'm falling in love with her." You could hear a pin drop. He kept talking, saying he'd fought his feelings for a long time, but turning 40 made him realize life is short. He brought up his dad again, how his father never got to chase happiness, and declared he wasn't going to waste his years in a marriage that no longer made him happy. I lost it. I grabbed the custom 3-tier birthday cake I'd spent days choosing and smashed it straight into his face. Frosting exploded everywhere. A few guests actually started laughing, most just stared in stunned support of me. Jackson wiped cake from his eyes, furious about his ruined shirt of all things, and stormed upstairs. April lingered awkwardly until I marched over, grabbed a fistful of her hair, and dragged her out the front door while she shrieked about assault. Not one person stopped me. Cheryl was screaming at her the whole way, "You have some nerve showing up in my son's home." Outside, I let go and unloaded years of hurt. April smirked, completely unashamed, and said Jackson wanted her now, that he deserved someone better. And maybe I should look in the mirror and figure out why I'd failed as a wife. She even threw in his exact words, how I never understood him the way she did, how I never made him smile anymore. I slapped her so hard the sound echoed down the street. She clutched her cheek, tears instantly flowing, and started screaming obscenities. Cheryl stepped between us and told her if she didn't get off the property immediately, she'd get another one from her. Guests had trickled outside by then, watching the drama like it was reality TV. Jackson reappeared in a fresh shirt, overnight bag slung over his shoulder, saw April crying, and immediately rushed to comfort her like she was the victim. He turned to me with pure disgust and yelled, "I'm done. When I get back from our trip, I want you and your stuff gone. I never want to see you again." A trip. He'd already booked a romantic getaway with her while I was still standing in the ruins of the party I'd planned for him. I watched them drive off, numb. Cheryl cleared the house, apologized to everyone, and sent them home with leftover food and the most awkward hugs imaginable. Once we were alone, I completely broke down. I'd sacrificed my career to be the stay-at-home wife he wanted, supported him through every illness, and now I was being thrown out like trash. Cheryl hugged me tight and reminded me of one crucial fact I'd somehow forgotten in the chaos. The house wasn't ours. It still belonged to her late husband. She'd let us live there rent-free as a gift. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "This is my house. I decide who stays, and I choose you." She was furious with her own son and refused to let him bring that home wrecker into the family home. Over that weekend, we drew up a proper lease in my name only. I changed the locks, installed outdoor cameras, and packed every single one of Jackson's belongings into boxes that I stacked neatly on the porch. A week later, he came back from his little love cat-ion. Keys didn't work. He started pounding on the door, yelling that I was trespassing, that he'd given me plenty of time to leave. When he spotted his life in boxes, his rage went nuclear. He threatened to sue, to drag me to court, the works. I spoke calmly through the new Ring intercom. "This is your mother's house. I have a signed lease. You're the one trespassing. Take your stuff and leave, or I'm calling the police." He called Cheryl immediately, screaming down the phone. Whatever she told him destroyed the last of his bravado. He kicked over a couple of boxes, cursed me out for 10 more minutes, then finally loaded everything into his car and peeled away. They left me countless furious voicemails. April especially loved calling me every name under the sun for stealing the house they wanted to start their new life in. Turns out April lives in a strictly enforced shared apartment and can't have Jackson move in. So he's been rotting in a cheap motel ever since. Tragic. I filed for divorce and made sure the judge heard every detail. Then, after listening to years of friends complaining about Jackson's blatant favoritism toward April at work, I sent a very detailed, very calm email to his company's HR department with dates, witnesses, and screenshots. A full investigation followed. Jackson was terminated for violating company policy. Manager-subordinate relationships were explicitly forbidden. April kept her job but became a workplace pariah. Alimony wasn't astronomical once he lost his income, but it was more than enough. I took my first ever solo vacation, spent a week on a beach with endless cocktails, and came home ready to start over. Cheryl and I are closer than ever. She still signs the lease every year with a little note that says, "Family isn't always blood." Jackson and April are apparently still together, living in some cramped apartment they managed to find. He still blames me for everything. I couldn't care less. Karma doesn't always need to rush. Sometimes she just waits for the perfect moment, like a surprise party, to serve herself. Thank you for watching my story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and press the bell icon. Stay tuned for more real-life stories, get more experiences.